Like always, today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors: gluten-free diet water, premium junk clothing, Williamson wines, Good Dudes coffee. Gluten-free diet water. Stay hydrated with a refreshing twist. Perfect for those health-conscious listeners. Premium junk clothing. For those who love to express their unique style with high-quality fashion pieces. Visit premiumjunkclothing.com and use code EverydayGSD15 at checkout. Williamson Wine, natural artisan wine from Napa and Sonoma. Good Dudes Coffee, veteran owned by former Navy SEAL Josh Bridges. Every cup is brewed with passion and dedication to quality. Visit their website at gooddudescoffee.com and use discount code EverydayGSD10 for an exclusive offer. And also, don't forget to visit the Everyday GSD store at DarinBibeau.com for all your official Everyday GSD merchandise. And now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Everyday GSD podcast. Today's special guest is Michael Rypel. I've got a great bio on you. First of all, thanks for coming on the show, man. I know you're extremely busy and you're a world traveler, so I'm glad that we were able to catch you amongst the traveling.
Awesome.
And ironically, Justin, I was just in the airport. I'm not going to say where I was because it doesn't really matter, but randomly he was on the same plane as me just recently, which was kind of funny because he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, Bibeau, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm flying back home." I'm like, this guy travels all over the world. Anyway, I digress there. Let me jump into your bio here. You're a powerhouse in the world of entertainment, consulting, and public relations. Back when you were in Los Angeles, you were a publicist, quote unquote, behind the scenes publicist. And I'll have you dive into that a little bit later. Currently, you're a managing director of Leipzig Galleries and a managing partner at MIR Consulting. And what would be a managing director in our world for the public? What's an easy description of that?
Managing director is just another term for a president.
Okay, perfect. Because that's a company overseas, and we can talk about that after. You spent years working behind the scenes, elevating brands, brokering major deals, and turning vision into reality. Whether it's connecting global artists with elite clientele or orchestrating strategies for high-profile individuals and businesses, you operate with the purpose, precision, and relentless drive. And, of course, that's why you're on the show, because you are a true everyday GSDer. How did I do?
Awesome. That's a good bio.
That's a good bio.
Yeah.
And so, let's just dive into it, man. I'm going to put this down because, actually, Justin might have something for me, so I'll just move this out of the way. And so I'm going to just start off with what made you want to go to LA and be a publicist? And if that's not a starting intro question and you want to jump in years before how you even got there, let's do it, man.
Yeah, great. Again, fantastic bio. Nice job. I was a little concerned because I was told that I was coming here to talk to Joe Rogan, and then I see you there. So
it's your lucky day. You didn't have to waste your time with Joey.
Nice job.
Yeah, so talk to me. So you decide, because you're from originally where?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. And I don't know if this is, let's start off, you're a young kid. Mm-hmm. Let's back it up. Let's not go to LA yet. Let's back it up. You're a young kid in South Carolina, and there's some tragedy that happened in your family.
Yeah. I lived here till I was about 5 years old. My parents got divorced. I moved to South Carolina. Military people. My mother was remarried.
Keep that a little closer to you.
I was, we went down to South Carolina, lived on Fort Jackson.
Oh, nice.
And there for a couple years and moved off the base. And as far as I know, my childhood was good. I had nothing to compare it to at that time.
Right.
But my mother was just, horrible person. And, but that's all I knew at the time.
Right.
And no outside understanding of what the world was outside of South Carolina and being on an Army base.
Right.
So at this time...
was your mom in the Army or was your dad in the Army?
Stepfather.
Stepfather, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine your military, what drill sergeant life is like when he comes home. And yeah. But he was fine. It was just fine. But fast forward to 1986, my mother was murdered right in front of me. I just jumped right into the nasty stuff by him. It was domestic dispute. And that went July 4th, 1986. All day they had been drinking and got into a fight. And that happened.
That happened, and you witnessed it. Do you think that by seeing that when you were 14 years old as a young kid, that today, because you give back a lot in the community, and we can touch on that a little bit later, but I know that you've helped out my charity, Sweep Away Cancer. You've helped out the Veterans of Foreign War here in Indiana. You've done a lot of work with other charitable groups. Do you think seeing that as the domestic violence that you grew up with, do you think that put compassion in you so you didn't go down that road?
Well, I didn't. I'll tell you, that day when that happened, I was just a kid. So I had no concept at all of what I was going to do in the future, nor did I ever think about it. I thought I was going to be a professional wrestler, actually, at that time, because WWF wrestling, and that's all I knew. Yeah. So what was I going to do? I had no idea anything about charities or giving back or, in any way, shape, or form. But my father was here in Indianapolis. He drove all night, came and picked me up, my sister and I, and brought us back to Indianapolis. And then I started to see what, the Geist area, Carmel, Fishers, they really were not developed like they are today. But because this was 1986, so you can imagine it was just really cornfields and farmers. Right. But it was still the north
Midwest.
Side.
Midwest.
It was starting to grow up here.
Right.
And as far as I knew, these houses, which were just middle-class houses between you and I, but to me, they were mansions. And I started to get this, feeling like there was something more. And I had, like I said, no concept of it at all. Right. And then I started watching TV. I never watched TV when I was a kid. Right. Most of the time I was barefoot, to be completely honest. I come from, very little. And when I got up here with my father and living up here in the Geist area and seeing what I saw and started watching TV and seeing images of Los Angeles, that's when I started dreaming of, I got to go out there. I got to see this.
And for the listeners that don't live in Indiana, I'll just explain real quick. So the Geist area, the Carmel area, the Fishers, it's the north side of Indianapolis, and it's more of an affluent area than other parts of Indiana, just for put it in perspective. Okay, continue.
And more to that point, what you just said, it wasn't even that affluent back then, in 1986. It was, it was just more affluent than being downtown Indianapolis. But now it's super more affluent, of course. Yeah. But then it was, to me, I mean, like I said, these things were huge mansions to me. Right. But they're just, middle-class houses now in that area. So that made my eyes big, and I had to get out there and find out what's going on in the world.
So what made you decide that you wanted to be a publicist? I mean, did you go to school for it?
No. That's not even what I wanted to do at first. I wanted to get back to school, get out of high school, go into college. I wanted to go into the ROTC, which I did at IUPUI at first, fast forwarding to the college years. And then by the time college came around, that's when, what was the Tom Cruise movie with?
Top Gun?
No, the other one with Jack Nicholson.
Oh, you can't handle the truth.
Few good men.
You can't handle the truth.
So I'm thinking I'm going to be a JAG officer now. Okay.
Right. Yeah, of course. Why not?
I had no concept of a publicist anywhere. What that entertainment life is. Right. And then while I was in high school, towards my last year of high school, is Desert Storm. Yep. The officer in charge of ROTC said, "Okay, if you sign up, you graduate. We can't guarantee you're going to go to law school. We might send you on a ship.
Yeah, somewhere else.
Yeah.
And just like that, the recruiter's so smooth as always."
So now we're fast forward to 1993, and I started looking at business. I had a great teacher in high school that was a business instructor, and started looking into finance and different things like that. I'm not fantastic in math, so it wasn't really the great path for me. So I started just hanging out with more business people older than me, right, and seeing where I'm going to go. I just knew I don't want a job, and I haven't had a job where somebody pays me a check since I was 19 years old. So at this point, I'm 19, 20, and starting to hang out with people in their late 30s, 40s, and they're all married. Well, I'm getting invited to charity dinners, and that's when I started looking at charities and maybe I can help in charities and help somehow bring money into charities. I started bringing people together here in Indianapolis at different charitable events, and I saw I'm not getting invited enough to things. And I figured it out that all these people are married. Their wives don't want to just hang out with me and these guys. So I got married. I had to find a wife. And I did. I found a wife. I only knew Stephanie a couple weeks, and I asked her to marry me, and we got married. That was 30 years ago.
Wow.
And fast forward to now we're at 1994. No, I'm sorry, 1996. Donald Trump was in Indianapolis doing a charity at the Hyatt downtown. I said, I want to meet Donald Trump. So I went down there, and I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't dressed super nice. And in fact, I had a baseball cap on. We had just talked about that earlier, about me not wearing hats because I have a small head.
Yeah, for the listeners, he does have a smaller head. The people that are not watching this on the show.
So I went, I grabbed a golf cap. I went to the Hyatt. And I did bump into Donald Trump, and he was with Marla Maples at the time. And he noticed me right in the group of people, came right over to me.
He's like, that hat doesn't fit him.
It was something like that. He said, why are you dressed like that at an event like this? And he started talking to me about the importance of dressing correctly.
Yeah, dress for success.
Mm-hmm. And I have that picture to this day. He took a picture with me. And then I had this book called Leroy Neiman's Big Book of Golf. And it had a picture, a painting in there of Donald Trump. And he said, I didn't even know Leroy Neiman did that painting of me. That's awesome. He signed it. I went home.
Was his signature then as his signature is today, or did his signature evolve?
It's still boisterous, but it is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is different.
It is interesting when you start talking, and obviously that's a whole business that you're in, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting when you see someone's signature from years ago? Like, look at Wayne Gretzky's signature when he was on his rookie card and O-Pee-Chee card, or Topps card, either one, compared to his signature today.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Yeah.
I went home. I went to Barnes & Nobles and bought that book again. It's a $100 book, and it's a lot of money for me in 1996.
Yeah.
And I sent it to his offices in New York. About 2 weeks later, I got a letter back from him and thanking me for that, because he said he didn't have a copy of it. And I still have that letter to this day. And he told me in that letter, I hope I run into you again. So I say this, all honesty, Donald Trump set me on the path to everything that I do today. Because he gave me inspiration that I would see him again, and that it did make me dress better from that moment everywhere I went.
Yeah, that's a great story, because it's interesting, because I always say we try not to talk about politics or religion on the show. That's nothing to do with politics.
He wasn't a politician then.
Yeah, I was going to say he wasn't a politician there. He actually was almost like I don't want to say a mentor, but a mentor without even knowing he mentored you.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. So he's a businessman, and people that had the same opinions then. People said you either love him or you hate him.
Yeah,
even back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was very boisterous at the time, but I loved him.
So this is in Indiana. So then at what point did you end up going out to California?
It was the same year. So I went out there, and the first time I went to California was 1994. I was involved in Taekwondo pretty heavily, and
you do jiu-jitsu now, right?
No, Taekwondo.
Oh, Taekwondo. Okay.
But so Stephanie and I went out there, and saw it for the first time, and the Hollywood sign and all of that, and it was just incredible to me. But I had no concept or idea how I'd ever make it out there.
How cool is it the first time? I remember the first time I went out to California and saw the Hollywood sign, because as kids we saw it on TV, but I remember the very first time that I saw it. I was still a teenager. I might have been 19, I think, and I just remember seeing that, being like, it's Hollywood, like it's. It's hard to explain. Like, you just, because before you wouldn't see that was like only special when you get to see that.
Yeah. It was incredible.
Yeah,
and being an adventurer at that time, I went and we climbed up to the Hollywood sign.
Yeah,
and Stephanie filmed me from the bottom of the cliff. She wouldn't go up there, but it's not that easy to get up there.
No,
you see that from the street. You think that it's just right
there.
Yeah,
it's right there.
It's not that easy. So I loved it. I stood up there and touched the H, and I said, one day I'll be out here. So it's you never get that first time back, so it was pretty special. But after Donald Trump in 1996, I came home and told Stephanie, I said, that's where I need to be. I need to be around people like that. People like that. How do I do it? She doesn't know, so I don't know why I'm asking. Yeah. But she says, whatever you want to do, I'll do it. So she was in school to become a teacher at that time. She was just getting her first job as a teacher, and she's a Midwest girl, and California's not for her.
That's not for everyone.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I agree. And ended up not being for me either. And I don't think it really is for anyone. Actually, you sell your soul to it, But I went out there in 1996 first. And that would have been January. Yeah, I think around the time of the Golden Globes, which are held at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. And I was a big fan of Dick Clark. I don't know how young or old your listeners are, but Dick
Across
Clark.
the board.
Okay,
my mom watches the show, and my nephew does too. Big range.
Well, Dick Clark, for your mom, she definitely knows how huge he was in the 50s and 60s in the American Bandstand. But after that, he grew into owning his own production company, Dick Clark Productions,
right.
And produces the Golden Globes, American Music Awards, People's Choice Awards, and countless other things. And then Merv Griffin, who started Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
He owns the Beverly Hills Hotel at this time. So I just go there and like, what am I going to do here? Why am I here? I'm talking to myself. I'm dressed nice though, I can tell you that.
Looking good.
So
looking good, feeling good, ought to be in Hollywood.
I'm sitting in the lobby bar and I'm just saying, all I need is Dick Clark or Merv Griffin to walk by.
So you're manifesting this shit before manifesting was manifesting.
It's the only way, because people I had talked to, they said you have to go to school for this. You have to get a job at a studio. You have to work your way up, being a gopher, getting people's coffee, being their bitch. I'm not going to do that. I don't have time for that. So I sat in the lobby bar, dressed up in a tuxedo, because they're doing rehearsals for the Golden Globes. And it's not closed off to the public yet. I got a room there. You're allowed to be in the hotel until showtime the next day. And I'm waiting. I don't see them all day. I'm like 8 hours sitting at the bar. So finally, I just get in the hotel to go into my room. Merv Griffin is sitting in the elevator with me, going up. And he's really nice, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I love your hotel, sir," and this and that. And I told him that I'm working here. He said, "Oh, fantastic. Then you know my buddy Dick." So we get off the floor. And
you're like, "Yeah, of course I know Dick."
And we get off the floor, and there's Dick Clark, and he's bitching and moaning about some problem they're having with the flower arrangements and the bottles of water. They didn't arrive. So he said, I hear him bitching and moaning, and I say, I can help with that. And just so happens, I had met a guy the day before who represents Krispy Kreme donuts. All right. And I got in contact with him, and we put this deal together where he.
And this is pre-cell phone, so there's some organization and some hustling happening. It's not like you're just picking up your phone and texting your buddy,
The texting was not easy, no, but we did have cell phones. I had the Motorola flip phone at that time.
Okay.
And he was on property, and his wife ran the red carpet for the Golden Globes, so I was already making pretty good progress here. And we put this deal together for him. And Dick Clark never asked who I worked for, what I do or anything, but he says, I want you working for me. I started working for Dick Clark Productions right then, throughout the whole season, People's Choice Awards, going all the way through March, and then I was off for the year until we come back to the next award season. I did that until as a subcontractor with him and his organization until probably 2005.
But think about that in the everyday GSD world. So people are like, "Oh, I've applied. I've never get a call back. And you sat for 8 hours just waiting. And I don't want to say hope, but we'll say hope that one of them would walk by you so you could actually have some sort of interaction. And because of your effort and time to do that, you meet him in the elevator. Then there's a little problem, and you're like, you could have just walked away and said nothing, but you're like, I could fix this. And next thing you know, you got a job.
Yeah.
It's pretty legit.
That's some everyday GSD.
That's some everyday GSD shit right there. That's going to be a reel.
And I'll tell you that, I talk to people today, younger people, or I speak to organizations, and tell that story, and they'll tell me things that they tried to do and the same thing, and the thing is, it failed and they stopped.
Right.
That totally could have failed for me that day.
Yeah.
And people do that in Hollywood all the time. They try to wait outside producers' offices or directors outside their car and try to give them a script and whatever. But a lot of that had to do with Dick Clark's a cool guy. All right. Merv Griffin was a cool guy, and they gave the time of day. So it depends who you're working with. A lot of things had to fall in place. I'll be honest with that. But
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I had to be there though, and that's all I teach all the time. If you're not there, it's not going to happen.
Right. You've got to make that effort.
You got to be present. And
yeah.
Be there.
And
if it would have failed, I would have tried something else. I would have just kept going.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so you do this for a couple years, and then what happens?
Well, I'm there 2006. Sorry, that's 1996 to 2005.
Yeah.
During that period of time, I'm just subcontractor, so it allows me to go do other things.
Right.
So in being around that world, I'm meeting celebrities on a daily basis, meeting publicists on a daily basis. Now, I don't work for a publicity firm, one of the firms out there, so I'm subcontracting to publicists to do fixer work, solve problems for celebrities, publicists, companies, movie studios, behind the scenes.
Right.
And, although I have some wonderful stories that I could tell, I can't tell like specifics of things that I fixed over the time. But one of the most famous ones that during the period of time, 1997, 1997, I was working with, I was chaperoning Chris Farley to many things that he was involved in. And, he's a big ball of issue wherever he went.
Yeah.
And
to say the least.
Yeah. So I was with him in the last public appearance he ever made, and mistakes that he made, and sent him into his last time at rehab before he died. And so that changed my perception a little bit on what I was doing. I was really just babysitting people.
Right.
Getting paid very well for babysitting people, but I also cared a lot about him. He's a great guy. And so that sent me more into working red carpets and studios and staying away from babysitting specific people.
Right.
Because 9 out of 10 of them got big problems, man.
Yeah.
All of them do. It's all a facade on the, it's all publicity and polished.
Yeah.
Come outside, but behind
those doors. Yeah.
Big problems. They're not GSD, and I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Somebody's doing it for them.
Yeah. That's interesting, especially when you can see behind the curtain. You get to see things that people can only imagine that may happen or may not happen, or not believe it even happens, or they have this whole theory that, oh, this guy's a disaster, this girl's a disaster back there, but they don't know. No. And then you're actually back there going, well, actually, this person's not a disaster, or this person is a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was your favorite person to work with, if you could pick one?
Chris, so to speak. I mean, it was a lot of fun. He was a great guy behind the scenes.
When did he pass away? It was
1997.
Oh, was it 97? It's been that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, December, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah. I'm sure someone's going to Google fact check that. It was November 29th.
His last public appearance was here in Indianapolis, actually. It was the opening of Planet Hollywood. And they had a Planet Hollywood downtown at the time. So he had everybody in town. I think Sylvester Stallone even came.
And paparazzi was big back then. I mean, it is now too, but like.
Yeah, they became really big after the beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got way out of hand. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at 2005 now. At this time, I've been there since 1996 to 2005, and I'd go home to see my wife, and by this time I have a baby also. And
you have one child at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your wife is in California with you, or you're traveling back and forth?
I'm traveling back and forth.
Okay.
She's here, school teacher at the time, and mother, and basically single mother, because I'd be gone months at a time. And
oh wow,
things started to get rough in 2005. So I came home to help fix a family situation. And anytime I'd go home, somebody would be backstabbing me back in California.
Yeah,
it's a dog eat dog world out there. So I just decided in 2005 I'm going to come home and stay home.
Right.
and sold all my interests out there to somebody else at that time who had been learning what I was doing and how I was doing, and I said, "Good luck."
Were you comfortable with who you sold to, or it didn't matter?
Yeah.
Or was that just transactional?
Yeah, as a woman, we'd been working together for a while as an assistant, almost a partnership. It wasn't, but almost a partnership, and she just took it on from there. And because a lot of things I was doing was event based, also, where I'd throw events. I'd be at the Playboy Mansion most weekends, and we'd do events at the Playboy Mansion. Do a lot of charities on Sundays. Hefner would always give out the mansion on a Sunday to a charity that he found interesting to him.
Right.
So I was around all of this all the time. I mean, the glitz and the glamour and the girls. And so during that time, I also grew an interest in managing models and celebrity, lower celebrities, not the big celebrities. I don't have time for that kind of thing, but a lot of playmates, managing their careers during they have a 2-year agreement with Playboy when they do a spread. So during that 2 years, they're managed by Playboy, but what happens to them after that 2 years? So we do a lot of things like that. And I was able to bring that home back to the Midwest. A lot of those girls are from the Midwest. So that allowed me to come home. And I did.
But it is funny when you say that about California, it's not for everyone, and it's you sell your soul. But it's like when you talk about a lot of the people that are there are from the Midwest or the East Coast. It's like they're not. I mean, obviously, there's still people from the West Coast and California that had made it in California or in LA or in Hollywood. But typically, you hear about these people that they have the dream and they left Iowa or they
always.
Yeah.
Playmate's the same thing. I mean, 9 out of 10 of them are from Iowa, Ohio, Indiana.
So okay, so you
Michigan.
come Michigan. You come back to you come back to the U.S. You come back to the mainland. You come back to the Midwest, and what are you doing for business at this point?
I am managing those girls. That's one aspect of my company. At that time, it was called American Legends, which became MIR Consulting later on. And the reason for that is when I came back here, I'll tell you a quick story that as soon as I came back here in 2005, like, what am I going to do? It's Christmas time. So I said, I'm going to throw a Playboy party, bring some Playmates. What's the coolest place in town? And I'll tell a story about it. I think, of course, Henry Najum here in town. For your listeners don't know that. He owns Savor restaurant here. Yeah,
you used to own Bella Vita. And
That's right. Yeah. In Indiana, when I came home, I mean, there's nothing. There's no VIP bars. There's what do you call it here? Bottle service is illegal in the state of Indiana. I mean, you can't serve a bottle of alcohol on the table and where you pour the drinks yourself to your friends, buy a bottle like they do in Vegas or California or almost anywhere else in the country except for Indiana.
Yeah.
Henry Najum is actually responsible for that. I guarantee none of your listeners know this, that he fought for this with the liquor board to be able to do that because he wanted to open a bar, a VIP bar like Vegas, and he did. He was successful opening this bar. He was the only person allowed to have bottle service. And the requirement was he had to have a special secure area and security.
Was that those Sunday parties that they would do?
No, this was before the Sunday parties. This was actually, his bar was called, it ended up being called Vision and Vapor. Vision was the restaurant, Vapor was the club. I came up with those names later on, but first it was called, I think, Gilo was and Chibo. Chibo was the restaurant. Downstairs, upstairs was this nightclub called Gilo. I might have those backwards.
Doesn't matter.
I think it was Vision Vapor first, and then I came up with Gilo Chibo.
Yeah.
Cibo means food in Italian. Anyway, fantastic place. So people were telling me about this. You got to go check this place out. So that's where I'm going to have my party, okay? And I met Henry Najum. He rented his VIP area to me, and I had this Playboy party. I had badges to get up there and things like that. And then I hired my own security because I didn't trust their security.
Now, is this before you kicked Gene Simmons out of a limo, or is this after?
Yeah, that was later, after I got that relationship with him. The reason I tell you the story is because then a guy tries to get up in the VIP, and my security stops him, and I'm noticing this, and I overhear him, and he goes, okay, well, I own the place, but fuck it. And he walks away. I said, no, come on up here. And that's how I met Tim Durham, because he owned the place with Henry Najum.
Right.
Now, some of your listeners will know who Tim is.
Yeah, I think a lot of local listeners will know the name, and then people that are national. Probably saw him on was it Dateline?
American Greed.
American Greed. Yeah, yeah.
So I became fast friends with Tim, and then he liked that I brought that LA feel to that club that night, and had playmates up there, and of course I brought him up there, and I got to talking to him and things, and at that time he was buying a majority interest in the movie company National Lampoon. So knowing my past and things, asked me if I wanted to work with him on that and to do events, and so that took up most of my time from 2005 to 2008, really.
Right.
So I stayed in the entertainment business, but here in Indiana.
Right.
And worked with him. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. Not cool where it all ended up.
Yeah.
By 2008. And
yeah.
Which, again, watch the American Greed episode. I won't talk about Tim and how all that went down, but I do say a famous quote from Warren Buffett said, only when the tide goes out, you'll know who's swimming naked. And so 2008 housing crisis, we found out Tim was swimming naked, and shit hit the fan. There it is. Yeah,
that's the abridged version of the show. It's actually a really good episode, but it's funny. I know several people that know him and watch the show. They're like, well, it's not really what happened. I'm like, do you really know him? Do you really know him?
Well, I will speak to that point.
Yeah.
20% of that show is true.
Yeah, 20 was true or wasn't?
Was true, 20%.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that, when you see a show like that and you're involved in the daily life of somebody like him.
Yeah.
Like imagine they did a show on Bernie Madoff and you're Bernie's son. His son would know that half that stuff is just made up.
Yeah.
But the thing is, nobody would talk about Tim except his brother-in-law. He's the only person speaking in that show. So since they only had one person's perspective, even the footage, like I have all this footage of stuff that could have been in that show and made it great. They offered me a lot of money. I said no. And his assistant has a lot of great stuff. She said no. We're pretty dedicated to him because he's a really great guy.
Yeah, I heard, and again, I don't know him. I just knew of him, but yeah. Okay, so he's 2008. We're past that. Now where are we at with you and your career and your life?
So I've always liked since I was around celebrities, and I always liked memorabilia and things of that nature. So I started representing a company in Miami called Millionaire Gallery from publicity and marketing, and this is 2008, housing crisis time. Sales are starting to be bad. They're the best of the best in their line and what they do. And I said, well, I can help bring you overseas, and that's what leads us overseas. While we're having a housing crisis here, they did have some problems over there, but the wealthy people like the Saudis, the Russians, Chinese buyers that were coming to London, no problems with money. So we were able to open up over there, and then from there grow to 5 other countries. And that became basically my entire life is working with Millionaire Gallery.
Yeah. So then when did you leave Millionaire Gallery and start your own?
2018. That was the guy who owns that. Him and I had a big falling out. My direction where I wanted to keep growing the company and the things that he wanted to do did not match. So I left.
And explain to the audience what you talk about when you talk about memorabilia and like what do you actually do?
He developed a way. Well, first, where the memorabilia comes from is signing licensing agreements and working with celebrities and mostly athletes, and then he developed a way of presenting it, putting it together where it made it luxury instead of your normal go to the mall to a sports card show and buy a Dennis Rodman jersey in a shitty framed presentation. He developed a way where he's able to present it and present memorabilia and preserve history, like Napoleon documents, for example, and develop something that could hang on the wall and look like a piece of art.
Right.
And that's what really fascinated me. And by the way, I met them they were doing a charity fundraiser at the Playboy Mansion in Los Angeles, and that's how the whole thing came about. This is what I mean. The networking just goes and goes. You just got to see where the door opens and walk through it.
Right.
Yeah. So leading to that, though.
And if the door doesn't open, kick it down.
That's right. Done that a couple times too. So we now we're 2018 and Millionaire Gallery is at the greatest shopping destination in the world. Is called Harrods in London. Arguably, most people would agree with that
right
in the wealth circle. And he had that. So I'm like, what am I going to do now with this? Because I love this. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to do.
right
And
you found your passion.
yeah, me leaving though turned Harrods kind of against them. They did not. Things didn't go well over the next 2 years.
Right.
With them. So during that 2 years, I worked to find a way to brand something that would be better than what Millionaire Gallery's doing. And I did find a company in Germany called Leipzig Galleries. They sold antiquities.
And how do you pronounce it in German? You said it earlier.
Leipzig.
Leipzig.
And they were involved in antiquities. Their founders, their family founded that in 1813. So it was a over 200-year-old company.
Yeah, I was like, that's a new company. They just started. They're gonna pass that 3-year mark.
So the grandkids at this point, the great grandkids, they had no interest in going on with this. So I was able to buy that and use that, and then go back to Harrods and listen. I have a 200-year-old company, to present something here. So
right.
So they put me on the back burner until they were done with Millionaire Gallery, and when they were done, they called me.
Right.
And, there I am again, and that's what I do.
Putting yourself in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think from the beginning of your young adulthood and into current days, that's kind of your thing. If you want to be somewhere or you want to work with someone, you find a way to get in that circle somehow or in front of that person. You know, the story of, meeting them in the elevator and you sat at the restaurant for 8 hours waiting for one of them to walk by. That's just persistence, right? Just sitting there. You're like, I'm going to do this and it's going to happen. Right, Justin?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's true everyday GSD mentality as opposed to being like, well, it's been about an hour. Guess I'm taking this monkey suit off and going to go find something else to do.
I'll tell you also is I still do it to this day in a way that I don't always know why I'm getting on a plane to go somewhere. I'll fly. I'll say, I have to go to Abu Dhabi this weekend. I tell my wife, and she's like, okay. And it's because I know that somebody's there that I've been talking to, and they're kind of ho-humming whether they're going to give me the deal or not. So I just go there.
Right.
And it works out.
Yeah.
I now have a gallery in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Hong Kong, and London. And it all came from just getting on a plane.
What's your favorite place for galleries?
London will always be Harrods is the number one place. I wouldn't have anything without being at Harrods anyway.
Right.
Because I meet all of these people through that. But even during COVID, I was still flying. Whatever planes would take me and allow me, I would go and meet with these people and keep deals going. I had no downturn during COVID,
right.
like a lot of people did, because I was still making deals and going straight to these people.
And you probably had a better opportunity to make deals because a lot of people weren't traveling.
They weren't. I would be on the plane almost by myself sometimes, flying to London.
I feel like a few times I flew quite a bit during COVID, but I felt like it was I had my own private plane. Mm-hmm. Me and maybe a couple other people on it, but yeah.
So the only take from that is that, if you have something in mind to go do it, just go do it. Don't sit and think about it. Don't wait for somebody, because I learned this a long time. What was going on in LA a lot is that if you have your eyes closed or your back's turned, somebody's going to do it.
Right.
You're not the only GSDer out there. There's people out there doing shit, and they're
and if you think you're the only one, you're wrong.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be doing it.
Yeah, there's someone that works harder than you. So you have to figure out how to work harder than them.
Always.
Okay, so you have this company. It's extremely successful. What makes you give back to the charities that you give back to?
Well, that was something I was doing early on. Again, that's how I met Donald Trump, even going to a charity and noticing that he was doing that. And I meet some of the greatest people at charities.
Right.
Definitely the people with the large pockets,
Yeah.
That's where it came from first. It didn't come from a part where I feel like I need to give back to charity. Remember, I came from almost nothing anyway, so, and nobody gave me anything. So I had this mentality that I was not actually very giving. It was very self-serving, doing these things to meet certain people. Today, now that I've made it there and I get older, I'm able to sit back and see that the importance of why I had those opportunities and why they were doing those things is that I do start to feel that it's my duty now to help and to spread that information for people who are willing to listen to it. I'm not big on people who aren't willing to listen to it.
Right. You're not pushing an agenda.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you're not on your soapbox. Yeah.
Especially with this generation today. I mean, they're so damn lazy and complain all the time about
the majority
about everything.
Not all of them, but the majority.
My daughter, she works 2 jobs and she's in school, and she doesn't have to do those 2 jobs, but she does it on her own. I didn't tell her to, so she has a work ethic, but she still complains more than any generation before that I've ever met. But she still does it though, at least.
And then you've had a couple restaurants too yourself?
Yeah. I just sold last restaurant, Cheeky Bastards, fantastic restaurant, and my partner and chef, he bought it, and with the general manager, and they're doing very well. It's
nice.
Great. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I like coming up with concepts and moving on from them. It's I know that you've been in the restaurant business too. It's not something that it's not my forte. I come up with the idea and the concept, but I'm not going to run a restaurant. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't think people know that when they go in a restaurant what's going on behind the scenes there. To make that happen.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing that you did with the memorabilia that were able to obtain?
Putting deals together with like Tom Brady and Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky, you mentioned earlier before. Being able to see those people that I grew up with, these heroes of mine. Yeah. I work with an artist out of New York, Joe Petruccio. He's a fantastic artist, and he is a protege of Leroy Neiman, who I mentioned earlier, that I had this book for Donald Trump. So following along that line, to be able to meet the guy who studied under Leroy Neiman,
right,
and also tell him that story was fantastic. But he is an amazing artist, and he'll do these original pieces that I then could go to Tom Brady and say, hey, we're going to do a limited edition of only 12 of these. I want you to sign it, give you so much money for this, and licensing deal, and things of that nature. Being able to do that is pretty fantastic. But I also part of my schooling, I had a lot of different schooling throughout these last 30 years, and I studied history in England at King's College, and I'm fascinated by Napoleonic history and any military general history, actually, leadership. And so being able to buy and study letters of Napoleon and then preserve them in a way that I can present them in my gallery and then sell them on to other people who are interested in that. Pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's special. That's not just fantastic. I think it's special. There's a lot of counterfeit out there. Mm-hmm, of course. So obviously you've got an eye. You've been doing this for years. You said 30-ish years. How do you recognize something that's a fake that's so close to being real? Or how would you tell someone that's goes out and spends a bunch of money on a Tom Brady helmet when signed by Tom Brady, but it maybe really wasn't? Mm-hmm. What do you tell them?
Well, when you're dealing with back up a little bit to Michael Jordan, kind of set the bar on this in the 90s. He worked with the FBI directly in an operation called Operation Bullpen, which was
I like the name.
Yeah, he was the most forged signature in the country at that time. This is during the 90s, the Chicago Bulls, and he worked with the FBI to take down this huge ring out of Florida. They had warehouses in Vegas and Florida just full. Warehouses of Michael Jordan memorabilia. But when they busted in there, they also found the Pope, Mother Teresa, Madonna, JFK, tons of forgeries. And they had a guy doing it. His name was Marino, his last name.
And he was actually physically signing them?
Yeah, he had a photographic memory. Dateline did a special on where they went to jail and asked him to do a Ted Williams baseball, and just did it right there and handed it to him. He put the two next to each other. They're identical. It's pretty incredible.
That's wild.
But there's little telltale signs in that. So out of that came two major authentication companies called JSA out of Florida and then PSA DNA. And those two, PSA DNA is actually employed by the NFL and Major League Baseball to authenticate the home run balls or the Super Bowl balls.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so they started getting into it on a way to, put experts involved in doing that.
Because it's a huge, huge money industry.
It's
Billions.
100 billion according to the FBI, and they say the FBI, if you go on their website, they say 90% of all sports memorabilia is fake. 90% in the United States.
90%.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So if you're going to buy it, make sure it's licensed. So out of that, Michael Jordan signed an exclusive agreement with a company called.
And hold on, real quick. So I could go into a store and buy a fake one and not know it's fake, and it's potential that the owner of the store didn't know.
It's potential, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even the Merino fakes are still out there to this day. They're circulating.
Yeah,
and they're really good.
Yeah.
But I would say if you're buying sports memorabilia, make sure it comes from the licensed company that athlete is signed with.
Right.
And you can easily do a Google search to find out who Tom Brady is signed with or Michael Jordan is signed with, and only buy that memorabilia. And the price reflects that, of course, but 100% you're buying something good. The second way you're buying something, if it comes with a letter from JSA or PSA, then
that's a letter of authenticity.
Yeah, let's say somebody met Michael Jordan at a golf course. First off, he's a horrible signer. He doesn't sign autographs very often, but every once in a while he will. And you want to take that to JSA or PSA, get their letter with it that guarantees that.
And so let's say I happen to see Michael Jordan at a golf course, right? And I wanted him to sign, and I had a basketball, or I knew he was going to be there. I followed your playbook. I went to the golf course that he plays at every day, and a week later I finally run into him, and he signs it, and then I take a picture with him, a little selfie, because that will help authenticate it when you guys go and look at it, or no?
Well, the picture means nothing anymore because people are even photoshopping or AI in photos.
I didn't think of that.
But there's a science behind authentication.
Yeah.
So that's part of my schooling also over the last 30 years and studying handwriting analysis of Napoleon, for example, because some forgeries aren't even like malicious. JFK, for example, had 16 secretaries signing his name. Napoleon had a secretary signing his name. So you also have to understand that.
But that's still worth money.
It's worth money, but nowhere near the same. It really diminishes greatly. But it's a whole science behind that, and only buy from the trusted source. I hear every story, especially in the 2000s. Everyone who had a Michael Jordan wanted to sell it to my company. They would say, my dad is friends with the mailman.
Yeah, everyone's got a story.
Everyone's got
There's
a story.
stories.
Yeah. So we don't look at stories or photos anymore. It's just there's a science behind the autograph.
Yeah. And you also can tell, like, for example, if we'll use Napoleon sign something, and then you do the homework on the actual item that's signed that was created, 75 or 80 years later in time, it's impossible that he could have signed it, right? So there's there's a way to authenticate not just the signature, but the item that they're signing too, correct?
Yeah, of course. I've actually studied handwriting analysis, but also paper and ink analysis too. Certain inks that he used during that time period.
Yeah.
People will try to forge that document today, but in the wrong ink, often in the wrong ink.
Yeah. Imagine that you do all that work to fake it.
And you're using a Bic pen.
You're not using an everyday GSD pen because we don't forge shit here. Oh, I love it. I've got a few questions from the audience, but before we jump into that, is there anything that you think you might want to touch on that we didn't touch on that is in your career, or I think that you think the audience would like to just hear? I know you have a very interesting life, and it can't be summed up in an hour, but obviously I know you're extremely busy, so I can't keep you on the show all day long. But again, I do have a few questions from the audience, but before we do that, is there a story that you want to share that you might have said, you know what, when I get on the Everyday GSD show, I'm going to share this story?
I think we hit him.
I like the Gene Simmons story. If you want to.
Oh, yeah.
That.
Well, he skimmed over that, bro. I was like,
that up.
Yeah, he's like, well, okay, what do we got? It's like, so you kicked Gene Simmons out of a limo?
And you brought that up, and then I became pretty close friends with him years later, and I don't think until he, of course, is sitting around listening to this podcast, puts the two stories together. Because he was supposed to appear at a party that I was throwing, and Tim was sponsoring, and also Red Bull was sponsoring. And he showed up at about 10. He was supposed to be making an appearance there. A lot of people bought tickets, and, of course, they want to see Gene Simmons. He comes to the parking lot. He sends his guy in first. Well, he shows up at like 10. Party's not really going to get started till 11:30. It was sparse when he got there. His guy came out, told him that. They drove away. But they were in Tim's limo, though. So they got it down. Tim Durham.
Yeah, okay.
They got down to about the fairground. I told Tim about this, and I told him how pissed I was. And And Tim called his driver and said, where are you? And he says, we're in front of the fairgrounds. Well, you know how great the fairgrounds.
You did not get him out at the fairgrounds, did you?
And yeah,
are you kidding me?
100%. He stopped and told me to get out. And Tim had him on speaker, and he goes, "You got to be kidding me!" And he said, "Get the fuck out of my car." And Gene and his guy got out of the car
by the fairgrounds. Oh, damn.
But later, fast forward when I'm with Millionaire Gallery, we had a gallery in Key West called Rock Lives On, and I made friends with him and his management, and we hired him and flew him down to Key West. And he did a whole thing where he taught 30 people how to play bass guitar and stuff all live in our gallery.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
It was really cool, and I spent the weekend with him. He was fantastic. I mean, amazing. And talk about a GSD, or this guy, man. He owns multiple businesses and licenses his name to everything, but he's very, very strict on everything he puts his name on. And I learned a lot from him, actually, and I regret that situation that happened by the fairgrounds.
but you're like, but not really. But not really.
But yeah, we were pretty pissed he didn't show up.
Okay, I love that story. Okay, a couple of questions from the audience. We started this in season 4. So a question from the audience, what daily habits or routines do you swear by to stay productive and maintain your GSD mindset? Oh, great question.
That's a great question. I make Post-its, write everything down. Anytime I have an idea, I write it down, and it's very important to do that. And make a list.
I'll make sure you get a couple of these.
That's fantastic.
Here. Yeah, my little notebooks, they're everywhere, all over my house. I've got that. I do that too.
I make a list before I go to bed of anything I didn't get done that day, and make sure they get done the next day before I start my day. Number 2 is never look at my phone until I've done 3 things on that list. I think a lot of people make that habit of just sitting on their phone in their bed in the morning.
Oh, so in the morning when you get up, you're not checking your phone at all.
I got to do 3 of those things on that list from the day before,
which is on paper.
I check my phone. Yeah.
Wow. Say that one again. I heard it, but I want this to be repeated.
Sure. I don't look at my phone in the morning until I finish at least 3 items that are on the previous day's list. Before I go to bed, I make a list of things that I didn't accomplish that day I need to accomplish the next day. Make sure I get 3 of those done before I look at my phone. That's
some everyday GSD right there. I got a few more questions from the audience, but I feel like that should have been the wrap up question. But I'm still gonna go with these few more if you don't mind.
Of course.
And like I said, I know you're on a time schedule, but we're gonna try to bang these out. Can you talk about a time when something didn't go according to plan, and how you handled it, and what you might have learned from it?
Well, I think the story that came to mind is the Gene Simmons one about how it didn't go as planned at all.
Right.
And we had at that party we had to explain to everyone now that Gene Simmons wasn't showing up. So the flip to that was Anna Nicole Smith was in town too. We were able to go grab her from another party and bring her there. And at the time she's really big, so people really enjoyed seeing Anna Nicole Smith at that time. And so it was just, flipping that around and making something happen.
Making moves.
They forgot all about Gene Simmons that night because when she walked through the room, and she had 3 broken ribs, I think, when she walked through but she still got out of the limo.
Was that from a car accident?
No, she was in the Aruba the day before, and she flew over the handlebars of a wave runner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but she still came. She still came to the party and did the thing. She's all drugged up, of course, but she walked through the party, and I gotta say, I think that was cooler than Gene Simmons coming, because when she walked through the party, it was I wasn't alive when Marilyn Monroe was alive, but to see her walk through the party, she was dressed up just like that, like Marilyn Monroe was walking through. People just parted and they just stared at her. She really had this aura around her, and it's too bad she died so young and never got to see what she would become. But I mean, it's not that she was a great actress, and neither was Marilyn Monroe, but
they're iconic in their own way.
She was definitely an icon.
Yeah,
fascinating icon. But a follow up to that is that it just reminded me also, because of the rib thing, she was getting medication here from a local doctor, and she was staying at Durham's house in the basement, and she stayed there for 2 weeks till finally had to have her removed from the house.
She didn't want to go.
Yeah, I forgot all about that until you just brought this up.
I was going to remind you about that part of the story.
She was all drugged up in that room and wouldn't come out of the room. Yeah. She was having food delivered to the room, and the door was locked the whole time. They had to have her physically removed out of it. She wouldn't go. She had a stipulation that she wouldn't go unless somebody sent a private jet for her. and nobody was going to send a private jet for her. So she was.
So she flew out in spirit. No, just kidding. Okay, next question. In a world that constantly is evolving, especially in media and branding, how do you stay ahead of trends without getting overwhelmed by them? I feel like you don't. I feel like you don't process like that. You're just pushing forward. I'm not trying to answer for you. I want you to think about that question.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because I don't. It's not a question that really would pertain to me. I just keep evolving with whatever's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer to it. Because it's not really a relevant question to you, but to a lot of people it is. But that answer is great. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, whatever's happening, you get involved or try to get ahead of it. Actually, I having a daughter who is 23. I do hear a lot of stuff that's happening before somebody my age would even understand or know it. So
right, yeah,
stay ahead of it.
Yeah, stay ahead of it. Okay, and this will be the last question, and I like this one. You've built a reputation for connecting the right people at the right time. What's your secret to building real, lasting relationships in such a fast-paced industry? Because anyone I talk to that knows you, anyone I've met before you came on the show, and obviously we've hung out multiple times in the past. And I was connected to you through other people, and you've always, to me, anytime I've ever asked you to like help out with something, your reply is yes before I even finish, and then that makes me want to figure out how I can help you with something. You've helped out, like I said, my charity, Sweep Away Cancer. You've helped out the VFW multiple times. I mean, the list goes on and on that I've seen you help out locally in the community, and then I've also outside of our community. So, so I'm curious, what do you think?
A couple things on that point is that I had a mentor long ago that told me to say no to everything because you only have limited time. I didn't agree with that person, and that person isn't doing very well to this day. Then is a multimillionaire, but now he's not doing very well. So I'm glad I went a different path, and that is I say yes to everything reasonable. And then that becomes a no when the other person starts to take advantage of that or not appreciate it in reciprocal fashion. I find being yes and being present gets me to the next place. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone does. It's just, are they willing to give up what they have to offer? And
I also feel you don't do someone a favor expecting a favor back.
No, I don't. But I definitely am not going to do it again if that person just isn't. I'm not going to regret doing it.
Right.
But there should be some type of, if I ever needed anything,
right.
Some type of appreciation. I mean, just even something very simple. You let me park in your driveway when I ask you. You know, you don't have to do that. And of course, I'm not going to be mad if you told me you can't. But you just like, yeah, sure, man. Thanks for asking. And it's just as cool, just like that. But I will, over the years, I mean, I have gotten a reputation amongst people that I'm an asshole, that I don't have a lot of friends, but that's by design. Right. I start out being nice and yes to everyone, and I recommend this to people too. But as soon as that person just shows you the slightest bit of unappreciation for what you have to offer, don't waste your time on it anymore.
Yeah.
But I never have a conversation though. I don't say, hey, listen, you didn't do this for me.
You just move on.
I just don't talk to them anymore. And so they think, oh, that guy's an asshole. He's too big for me. What a dick.
Yeah.
So it's really just all about, and I only have a couple people that I still, 20 years later, am still, going back and forth with that. I can call a friend.
Yeah, I love it. Well, listen, Michael, I appreciate you coming on the show. I think our listeners are going to get a lot of insight, especially in the industries that they're not familiar with, that you've kind of led the way on, and also like just completely kicked ass doing it. But most importantly, I think they're going to learn stuff that they just don't understand and didn't know how it operated, and the skills that you have put into it. And I love the part of not looking at your phone until you complete 3 tasks. I mean, there's so many little things that you said today that I think people are going to really, really enjoy. So I've got a little gift for you. I've got a little everyday GSD shirt because you are a true everyday GSDer. So we'll get a picture after with that. But I also have one for your lovely wife because she's been by your side, and I know she's a GSDer. So we'll give her that. Stephanie, she's a rock star.
Thanks, brother.
Hopefully she enjoys the show as much as all the listeners. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to many more years of hanging out with you.
I appreciate you, man. You did a great job. Fuck Joe Rogan.
Love it.